It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Jason Snell joins us from Macworld Magazine. Andy Ihnatko's here, too. And we're going to focus on really two topics. The new MacBook Pro with Retina display and Microsoft's take on the iPad. The Surface. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 304, recorded June 19th, 2012. Just set it to channel 3. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces. It takes a webcam and a click to turn your online meeting into high-definition video conferencing. Meet with colleagues or clients anywhere in the world, even from an iPad, with GoToMeeting from Citrix. Sign up for your free 30-day trial at GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button and use the promo code MacBreak. And by Hover.com. Hover is domain name registration and management that's simple. For 10% off your new domain, visit macbreak.hover.com and use the offer code MacBreak. And by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, visit audible.com/MacBreak. And by Ford, featuring the My Ford mobile smartphone app for electric vehicles. The My Ford mobile app makes the electric driving experience fun and efficient. Learn more about Ford electric vehicle technologies at ford.com/technology. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers Macintosh and iOS news, everything coming from the great land of Cupertino. Coming to us from the left coast. No, I guess he's on the right coast.
The correct coast.
The correct coast. Mr. Andy Ihnatko of the Chicago Sun-Times.
The way to remember it is that the sun sees the East Coast first because the sun wants to see us first. They'll get to your East Coast eventually.
Someday they'll arrive here, and then Jason Snell and I will welcome the sun with open arms. Jason Snell, editor-in-chief of Macworld Magazine, who's had a busy week. Good to have you. We thought Alex Lindsay would be here, but we're not sure. He's MIA. He might be on assignment. And a little later on from Boeing Software, we have an actual developer, Oliver Breidenbeck. He's going to talk a little bit about Retina displays. Speaking of Retina displays, Microsoft Surface. No, actually, they do say it's a Retina display, although they didn't use the word Retina. They said when you hold it at a normal distance, you cannot see the pixels. We're not going to call it Retina.
Especially if you're holding it the wrong way around.
But it is. We'll talk about the Microsoft Surface in a little bit. I'm sure both of you guys have some thoughts. But I think for the Apple world, the big story is still 1 week later, this MacBook Pro with Retina. And a lot of question marks. I ordered one and got mine yesterday. And I was very nervous, having read the iFixit column where Kyle Wien says it's the most unrepairable laptop we've ever seen, a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. Everything's glued down. And then reading also issues or questions about the display. And I'm still a little baffled about the display. Fortunately, I have smarter people than I here between Andy and Jason. I'm sure they're going to explain to me what's going on. So, Andy, I think you guys everybody here has one. This is mine up here. In fact, I'll show it to you for those. Yeah.
Thick hair, skinny. You can tell by the lack of an Ethernet port on a $3,000 computer. Yeah.
Does that bother you?
Yeah, it does. That my review had to be delayed because of all the coverage I had to write about Microsoft yesterday, so it's going to be appearing in the Sun-Times tomorrow. But I love it. I think it's a great machine. I think it really is the best Mac that Apple's ever made. But that said, boy, you have to have really different expectations off of this machine to be happy with it. I really do think that for a starting price of $2,200 and a more reasonable price of $25 to $26, you have a right to expect an Ethernet port. You have a right to expect the ability to add more RAM later on if you want to. And when you look at the reasons why you can't have those things, and you come down to, well, look how skinny it is. You couldn't fit an Ethernet port and something that's skinny. So, but it's not that skinny that this becomes a super, super portable machine, because this is still a 15-inch laptop. I mean, as as I've said before, I mean, I've never ever packed my laptop bag for an airport, and I've wanted to put a copy of People magazine in my bag, but darn, my 15-inch notebook is just too thick to put this little magazine in there. And that really is the difference in thickness between the two. So I just think that you really are you really are giving up a whole lot for those extra, like that extra really, really tiny amount of extra thickness. And I don't think it's a really great trade. That said, I mean, it is cost comparable to what you would spend on a 15-inch MacBook Pro if you were to configure it with a 256 gigabyte solid state drive. I just think that when I spend that much money on a computer, I really want a computer that has more flexibility than what they're giving me.
Jason, you agree?
Yeah, to a certain extent. It is the future. A little early. It reminds me a little bit of that first MacBook Air, although it's much more usable than that was, and I had one, so I know exactly how slow it was. But it did feel like it was a product that was expensive and going to be a limited audience would want it, but that you knew that over time it would become the mainstream. And this product feels like that too. It's a little early, and that's why it's a little expensive. And yet you get the sense that in the future, not too distant future, all the screens are going to be like this, and there aren't going to be any more optical drives, and everybody's going to have SSD, and I do think, yeah, like Ethernet, I think Apple's saying, like it has with floppies and optical drives and lots of other stuff over the years, that this is not a mainstream technology anymore, that most people are using wireless, and that they've got a gigabit Ethernet adapter if you really need to do Ethernet, and they're not going to build their laptops constrained for the port size anymore. And I think that's okay. I understand why it will annoy some people, because dongles are annoying. At the same time, I almost never feel the need. I actually used Ethernet on my MacBook Air yesterday for the first time in ages. To migrate some files across from one Mac to another. But that was the first time that I've needed that Ethernet cable in at least a year. So I think inevitably in the future it's not going to be that big a deal, even if it might be a bigger pain today. It was sort of like when they dropped the modem out, right? Everybody was like, oh, the modem, now I got to add a dongle. But it turns out most people didn't really need a modem. So, it's on the edge, and it's not for everybody now. But I think it's interesting in that 2 years out, are all Apple's laptops going to be just like this? And are there going to be lots of PCs that look like this too? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I do give Apple credit. I think that they made a lot of smart decisions in designing this thing. And one of the smartest things they did was to not dislodge the current 15-inch MacBook Pro. It's still on the price list. It's still very much an active product. So if those things are really important to you, you can still make that switch. I think that if Apple had decided to say, no, there's no longer a conventional 15-inch or 13-inch MacBook Pro. They're all Retinas. They're all like a little bit thinner. None of them will have these features. None of them will have mechanical hard drives. I'd be writing a much, much harsher review. As is, I simply note that it is, as you say, definitely the MacBook of 2014 as opposed to the MacBook of 2012. And also to be fair, Apple's also very, very upfront about that. They are when they're talking in public about it, they always make sure that they mention this is very much next generation stuff. We're not suggesting that this is going to be the right machine to everybody, but we may as well get started on the future today.
Somebody in the chat room is pointing out that lack of Ethernet could be a deal breaker in a government installation where there is no Wi-Fi. There are places where Wi-Fi is not considered secure or not allowed.
I do think that Ethernet is a much, much bigger deal than Apple than other people might be suggesting, because there's so many times when you're in a hotel room and there's supposed to be Wi-Fi but doesn't really work, or you're in an office where there's supposed to be Wi-Fi but you can't get access to it, and suddenly you think that, yep, you know what, if I had spent $400 less for this computer, I would have no problems right now. And right now here I am desperately haunting the streets of a foreign city looking for an Apple store that can sell me a $30 dongle.
So I've had a MacBook Air since the first one came out, and it has happened to me a couple of times that I've been in a hotel that turns out didn't have Wi-Fi but had Ethernet, and I didn't bring that $20 adapter. It has happened. That said, do you constrain how you build a computer for a use case that you feel is small and reducing rapidly, which is like the modem argument? I think it's the same argument. And the good thing about what Apple did this week is they did finally release using Thunderbolt an adapter that does gigabit Ethernet, which was the big problem with the USB Ethernet dongle is it was 10100. And so now you can get super fast Ethernet. You do have to remember to pack your dongle with you if you're somebody who needs it. The rest of us don't.
Here's just the question. I think the relevant question here, like the reason why that they couldn't put the Ethernet port is again that this was too thin. What feature does the thinness of this 15-inch device bring? It's not so much thinner that it actually is of any practical import. So I would my personal opinion is that they made a style choice that also clobbered some potentially useful features, and I'm always really, really skeptical of those kind of choices. If it makes absolute perfect sense on a MacBook Air. Because their desire is to make something as thin as possible. You have something that's as thin as a magazine, so thin that famously David Pogue threw his Apple loaner out with the newspaper recycling.
That was quite famous, yeah.
Because he didn't even notice that was in the pile. So yes, that's certainly an important trade-off, and I'm glad that we're finally getting like gigabit Ethernet for MacBook Airs. But again, I just don't see where the thinness is giving a consumer any advantage whatsoever. And then when you see that not only is there no Ethernet port, but also they had to make this MagSafe port much, much thinner and redesign it to make it work. And it's not as good as what it replaced because, man, it takes almost no effort to dislodge that connector from this port.
Well, I think that's two separate issues.
I really see the thinness of the new MacBook as a handicap rather than a feature.
I think it's two separate issues. There's the strength of the magnet, which I think is actually a MacBook Air issue because as somebody with a MacBook Air 11-inch, the old magnet was so strong that you could pull the MacBook Air off the table with the magnet. So they made it a little bit less clingy, and that has trade-offs now because it's easier for that thing to pop off. But you're right. I mean, thinness. It's hard for me to judge.
Also, it's physics. It's a longer plug, and instead of the cable coming out through the side, it actually comes out through the back. So really, you've got a lot of leverage working against you. So
right. Which I think is part of it's part of that design that they decided. I don't like that it sticks out. I think it's going to be much more prone to fraying like the original MagSafe was. But about the thinness, Apple. That's like an Apple axiom. It's just like thinner is better. Thinner is always better. Lighter is always better. Everything is pushed toward thin and light. And you're right. They may take it to extremes. It did force the redesign of the MagSafe, and it forced the dropping of Ethernet. Although, like I still feel like that was more about dropping a port that they don't want than it was anything else. Same with FireWire. But it's hard for me to judge because again, I'm an 11-inch MacBook Air user, and it is like a cafeteria tray, this thing. It is huge. It's hard for me to judge because it is still weighty and it's still very wide because it's a 15-inch screen. So one dimension gets a little thinner, but the other dimensions have to remain because of the screen. So I'm not quite sure whether it's super important or not. I don't think that was necessarily the motivating factor, and it might be an excuse, but I think Apple dropped Ethernet for the same reason they dropped FireWire, which is they figure they just want to move it along and that most people don't need it, which is very Apple. Whether it's right or wrong, it is right out of the Apple playbook.
Yes. The last worry that I have, though, is that I never used to have to justify a purchase of a Macintosh. You all remember like the dark days when idiot Windows people and MS-DOS people say, "Oh, well, you know what? The Mac is just a toy. You really, if you want a real computer, you have to have Windows. If you really want to do everything with a machine, you don't even want to consider getting a Mac." And that was true until like 1986. But after that, it was just as capable as anything else. My worry is that Apple might really just pull away so far ahead of the mainstream and so far ahead of the users that's going to be true again. That if you have a budget of $2,500 on a notebook, you compare what you get on the Windows side versus what you get on the Mac side. If Apple continues this trend of saying, "Oh, well, we feel as though 85% of the people aren't going to miss this, 85% aren't going to miss this other feature, 85% aren't going to miss this other feature," pretty soon by realizing that these are always different 85% of the population, you wind up with a computer that's only going to make maybe half of the consumer base or 60% of the consumer base happy. And you do get into a position where I'll be at that family wedding and I'll have to say, "Well, I like Macs, but talk to me about what you actually want to do with this because Macs aren't good for everything." I really desperately don't want that to happen.
I think, gentlemen, you're missing the most important point of this. This is the best Mac ever made for Diablo 3. And I think that if you really care about computing...
Oh, check out that Retina.
You can actually run this
No.
at 2880. It did. I tested it at 2880 by 1800, and it keeps up, which is it's impressive. I'm sorry, I'm a little busy right now. The arachnids,
not war, Leo.
The giant arachnids are attacking me, and I just I don't know. Hold on a second. That Templar's not much help. Okay, I feel much better now. No, I think it does do this quite well. In fact, a number of people said, if they said in your review, you really have to say how well it plays Diablo 3, and I will testify to the fact it actually does play Diablo 3 quite well, even at the highest resolution. Although I don't think you really need to play it at the highest resolution. There are, I think both of you are right. I think there are three things that you're going to have to buy when you buy your MacBook Pro with Retina. You're going to have to buy the $10 MagSafe dongle so you can use your other MagSafe adapters with this. Here's the I'm using it right now, in fact, with the do you have that over-the-shoulder shot? With that MacBook Air power supply. You just put that on there. And then this is an attractive look, I think. You
can keep it on the fridge.
Yeah, every computer should have something like that hanging off of it.
I had it stick to my keychain.
So that's one. You're definitely going to want to buy the Ethernet port. Just because there are going to be times when you have to have it. But the third most important thing I think you got to buy is AppleCare. And I don't normally buy AppleCare because I believe that those kinds of things are insurance policies, and I'd prefer to self-insure. But in this case, there are really no user serviceable parts in here. Having said that, I'll agree with Andy. It's the best MacBook I've ever used, clearly. I have to say, once you use the Retina display, it's very difficult to go back to any other device.
Text is just, as it was on the iPhone and the iPad, text is just beautiful. In the apps that are, so not all apps support it, but the apps that do, like I've got the chat room up here in Safari, and it is fantastic. It just looks, everybody in the chat room looks very handsome to me.
And I should point out,
I didn't find it quite that dramatic. I mean, when I switched to it from the new iPad back to my iPad 2, it really does seem like the iPad 2 has a much worse display. When I switched from my actual 15-inch to this to Apple's loaner, it's not quite so dramatic. To me, the big effect is just like how much more information it conveys. Like when I'm on Aperture like this, these thumbnails are so detailed that it feels like I can instantly identify the keepers from the ones that are just a little bit soft focus or the ones where we lost a little bit of detail without even having to enlarge these things. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more and more apps that use it not just to cram more stuff onto the screen, but to cram more information into what used to be just a sort of like icon or just a little dingus that you just look at and say, okay, I guess I better click this and find out what it wants to tell me.
When I was in college, we laid out our newspaper in PageMaker on the Mac, and I remember when you zoom back far enough, it would just give up on drawing the text, and it would be just like a gray blob. It's just like, this is great. Trust me, there's text there. It wasn't even like Greeked out. And I think about this, and I think, oh my God, you could read every single letter zoomed out so far in a page layout because of the level of detail that it got. So it'll be interesting to see what applications people find for this screen. But I do think it's inevitable that we finally broken through the 72 DPI give or take barrier that we've been at for the last like 25 years. That finally, I do think most computer screens will end up here. Whether that, to Andy's point about whether Apple is truly skating where the puck is going to be, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, but I feel like it's actually going to happen. I
think it might happen faster than you think, because unlike Andy, I really have difficulty now going back to the other. Let me show you other displays, and I think Retina establishes a standard that's going to be very quickly more than just something you want. It's going to be something you need. Here's an example on Twitter, the Twitter application. And I don't know if people watching video can tell the difference. So I'll just describe it for you. On the right is the Twitter application, which has not been adapted for Retina display, and the text is very soft. And on the left, one of most applications, in fact, that use Cocoa and use Cocoa's built-in text drawing will have this advantage. The text is very nice. Now, I think what you're seeing here, this display is set for optimal for Retina, which means it's 1440 by 900. It's not super high resolution. It's the same, in fact, as your old 15-inch MacBook Pro, but it's doing sub-pixel rendering on the pixels. Right. So the 4 pixels, because it's really 4 times the density, it's using those 4 pixels. They're not all the same to give you a much crisper text. And I think it really does look good. So much to the point where I don't like to use apps that don't support this.
Definitely, it really does stick out. I mean, I had on my blog, I did screenshots of each of the 5 different screen modes of the Retina Mac, and I was really, really surprised. I'm writing my review in Pages, which is another Apple product, and so I've got a Safari page open where it's beautiful, crisp, print quality text, but the text inside the Pages dock is just regular 72. The guess is that they're rendering pages off screen and then just basically delivering back in to handle all the graphs and stuff like that. But you're right. When you see those two things side by side, it is so easy to spot. I think that a lot of web designers are going to be really tearing their hair out for the next several months, realizing that, oh man, now I can see how many people are using Macs and using Apple devices to actually access our sites, and now every single bitmap looks like crap on these devices. We're going to have to re-render everything, render new buttons. Oh man, we thought we had this check cached.
You make an interesting point, because Apple did update Safari and its Pro apps to use this Retina display, but they didn't update iWork, which is now really 3 years overdue for an update. I wonder how long before they do that. We have a developer in-house, and in a little bit we're going to talk to Oliver Breidenbach from Boink Software. They did update their iStop Motion app. In fact, it's not out yet, but it's in beta. And they updated it almost right away. I want to ask Oliver what's involved in doing that. And Jason, I know you can explain to me, because I still don't quite get it. What exactly resolution is this display? And I'll show you when we come back, when I'll set it to 2880 by 1800, which you can't do without some special software. I found a third-party app, I think it's called SetResX, that will let me set it to that. And you'll see why Apple doesn't let you do that. And then you can explain to me, Jason, what the hell Retina really means. But first,
I'll be happy to.
Because there's some. It's more than, it's not obvious, and I think one of the problems they're going to have to do is I understand now what happened when you start to use it. You go, oh, I get it. You really don't want to distribute a display at 2880 or 2880 by 1800 on a 15.4-inch display. It just is unusable. You cannot have it at that resolution. So why, you might ask, make a display at that resolution? And that's the question Jason, I'm sure, can answer. And Andy, too, when we come back. Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times here. Jason Snell from Macworld. We're going to talk about the Microsoft Surface, too, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about our friends at GoToMeeting. Citrix. GoToMeeting, we've talked about before, great iPad app, great desktop app, lets you start meetings on the desktop, join meetings on the iPad, using the iPad's camera to get the HD faces, to get the screen sharing. It's really a fantastic technology. But I want you to take a look at it, because they've now added this HD faces. It's fantastic. If you visit GoToMeeting.com and use the promo code MacBreak, it says promo code on the page. GoToMeeting.com and the promo code MacBreak. You could try this free for 30 days. And you will see what a spectacular job they've done. I can't wait to see this on the Retina display, actually. I should start a meeting. I'll get this set up. I haven't put it on this new Mac yet. And I'll start a meeting on here, and we'll see. I bet it looks fantastic. Especially, I haven't tried the new camera yet either. There's some other features on here we'll talk about. Go to meeting.com. Click the try it free button. The promo code is MacBreak. All it takes is a webcam and a click to turn that meeting into a video conference with high-definition video. You can do it on the iPad. You can attend meetings on your iPhone, too. You just don't do the video. The free app available for iPad, iPhone, even Android devices. And of course, GoToMeeting's free for the first 30 days. There it is. Look how gorgeous that is on the iPad. That uses the Retina display beautifully. GoToMeeting.com. Use the promo code MacBreak. Oh, and one more thing. They're giving away iPads. 8 new iPads. All you have to do is go to Facebook and like GoToMeeting, and you'll be automatically entered in to that drawing for 8 new iPads. Let me go here. GoToMeeting. I'm not eligible, but I'm going to like them anyway, because I do like them. And then you can enter. I guess, is there more to do? It says then you can enter to win a new iPad. And refer a friend. If they win an iPad, so do you. Ha-ha! How about that? Double your chances of winning. Like GoToMeeting on Facebook, you could be ending up using it on that beautiful new iPad. I hope you win it. Don't forget to try GoToMeeting free for 30 days at GoToMeeting.com, promo code MacBreak. Here it is. Do you see that? There's the button, iPad sweepstakes. So you do have to click that, and then you can enter in have a meaningful summer. Like them on Facebook to get a chance to win one of 8 Mac iPads that they're giving away. All right, Jason. So you understand my confusion, right? Because I go to the control panel, and I look at the control panel, and it says in here. Now it's a little weird now because I have it hooked up to the HDMI port. By the way, we're using the HDMI port directly to feed our cameras. You know, I have to say they've done some work on this because I plugged in HDMI. It automatically changed the settings, best for external play.
Yeah, it knows what you're doing with that HDMI port and knows you want an actual video resolution instead of some weird computer resolution.
It was really smart. It handled it immediately, so I don't even know what resolution I'm at.
No, the display's control panel has gotten a complete rewrite in the OS version that ships with these new Macs, and especially the Retina. But it leads to this weird thing where you can't pick a resolution anymore. You've got this sort of scaled choice, like you were saying, between larger and smaller. And it's doing some very odd stuff. When you click on more space, you're getting something that it claims is, what does it say? It says it's like 1920 by 1200.
But it's not.
But it's not. It's actually, I believe, double that in a virtual screen, and then the graphics processor on the system shrinks it down. So it's actually like doing this weird resizing on the fly, which is why it says that it can affect performance. But the net result is that it's going to make everything seem a little smaller, like it's a higher resolution display, because it's got all those pixels. It can kind of fake a bunch of different resolutions. But to your point, you wouldn't want to go down to 1:1 because then everything would be roughly a quarter of the size.
Well, I could show you. I can't show you on our HDMI output because it's going to totally screw with it. But let me open up. I might have taken it off because I just didn't want to actually accidentally do this. The Set Res X, I took it off. But yesterday I did the unboxing, and the first thing I did is I put Set Res X on there. And if you had set it to 2880 by 1800, which Apple won't let you do, but you can do with these third parties. The reason Apple won't let you do it, everything is too small to use. You see it, but the menu bar is teensy.
The text is so tiny. I mean, this has been the problem is that if you did a higher resolution screen in the past, there was no support to make things bigger, and so then you'd end up with something smaller. If you used the high-res MacBook Pro, you saw this. If you used if you used the 11-inch MacBook Air and thought everything looked a little too small, that's because the 11-inch MacBook Air has a higher than usual screen resolution. And this has got such a high resolution that if you show it at 1:1, you actually can't read anything unless you crank up your text to be 30-point type to read body text. It's that crazy.
So my understanding is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you should just set it at best for Retina display. That would give you the best performance. You're now, and this is the thing that it feels a little bit like a cheat to me, because now the actual resolution is 1/2 each way, so it's 1/4 really. It's 1440 by 900, except that if you use and this is my speculation, tell me, Jason, if I'm misunderstanding this, when you use an app that is tuned for the Retina display, like Aperture, like iPhoto, like iMovie, like Final Cut Pro, it will use all the dots.
Right.
Is it not? But not all the time. Only in rendering images.
It's actually just like with the iPad and the iPhone with the Retina display, where there's a 2x mode and there's a non-2x mode, and you have the ability, if an app is using a framework that supports the 2x mode or has been modified to support it, you can say, all right, if you're on a Retina display, if you're on a high-resolution display, in that high DPI mode, they call it, show all of the information instead. When you don't have that, then it goes back to this pixel doubling, where it just draws a single pixel from the old mode as 4 pixels on this high-res display. And then that's like running an app on your iPhone or iPad that hasn't been updated for Retina. It looks kind of jaggy. Now, what's funny on the Mac is that you will have these hybrid situations where some stuff will be jaggy and some stuff won't be, because
Sparrow does that. So for some reason, I'm not sure.
Resources look fine because they're using standard text.
Right.
And standard text is Retina friendly, but all of their graphics in that app are still old style graphics. They haven't updated it for 2x graphics, so they look jaggy. Text looks good. Graphics look jaggy. There's going to be a lot of that as people update their apps. Sometimes,
Sparrow's the only example I know, but I bet there's others. On the right, the message rendering window is Retina, is gorgeous. on the left, the message list is not, and that is a really unpleasant combination.
Yeah, it's weird because probably they're using the standard WebKit HTML renderer on the right, and on the left, they're probably doing something custom. The Twitter app is like that.
Twitter does it too. Here's the example on Twitter. Yeah.
Well, to get scrolling to be smooth, a lot of times what these apps will do is render the text and dump it to like a frame buffer, which is basically they make a graphic of it.
It's pre-rendered.
And the graphic it's at the old resolution, and so it's not clear.
Got it.
So they have to be updated for that to be. So it's not a universal thing. It's like Apple has written it into the new frameworks for the operating system, but that doesn't change the fact that if you're using something custom, you got to update your app to support it. And, it's funny. This you could say, well, why didn't the developers know this was coming? And the reality is that Apple's kind of like the boy who cried wolf about this. Apple's been talking about resolution-independent Mac displays for, I'm not exaggerating here, I think like at least 5 years. It's been a long, I can't tell you how many WWDCs I went to where they said it's coming and it never got here. And so this finally with the iOS, they figured out the way you do it is not by creating like vector art for everything. It's just say 2x. You get two modes. You've got 1x and 2x. And with this this display, that's what you're seeing is a 2x mode. And now developers will have to update.
Do you guys both agree that the setting 99% of the world should use is best for Retina display, and then use some other setting if for some reason you need more? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any reason to.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of what Apple did with the Retina display. It was never about making a bigger desktop and a smaller form factor. It's always about taking the screen you already have and making it work better. So yeah, you'd want to keep it on best and hope that future revisions of current apps are going to figure out new ways of taking advantage of it. Like Jason said, at some point on a standard display, thumbnails of pages have to be sort of Greeked up and they'll sort of mock what the thing actually is. But with a Retina display, you can actually convey useful information. So if you were scrolling through, let's say a 40-page Word document, and you don't remember what section of the document you have this graph on, just zoom out. You can easily spot not only the graphic, but also the graphic within its original context, and then zap onto it. Where was I the only person who during the first day I've got the dock visible and just marveling at how high detailed all these dock icons are, and trying to figure out, can I actually read what's written on the cover of the dictionary app? I bet I can.
The letter in text edit is the here's to the crazy words commercial, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder. Let me zoom in on it. No, you still can't read it.
You don't need to open the application bundle to get the double res icon. Actually, check that out. You can actually read it.
Yeah. You have to open the bundle though. It doesn't display it that way in the dock. However, I agree. The dock icons look particularly crisp. So, would you say that somebody should wait on this until more apps are retinized? Do you guys find it so disorienting when you see an older app? For instance, I'm not going to use Chrome on this thing. I'm going to use Safari because Chrome just looks like crap.
I wouldn't say so. I don't find it quite. It's noticeable, but it's not jarring. But yeah, you're really eager for these apps to be updated. I still use Pages for most of my work over the past week on this device, but as soon as I think the first app that actually is optimized for Retina, I'm going to take a break from Pages until Pages comes back into present.
And again, it's hit and miss. For instance, in Facebook on Chrome, I guess the text is just rendered. I guess sometimes Chrome uses the WebKit renderings because it looks, well, no, it doesn't look. I take it back. You can see.
What we're seeing here is that programmers will always do they want the results that they want to get. And so if the standard ways of doing things aren't giving them the sort of experience they want to give their users, they'll figure out something clever that bends the rules a little bit. And that works great until Apple throws a curveball, or as Jason says, makes on their threat that, if you boys don't clean up this bedroom, you're going to come home from school one day and we'll have thrown everything on the floor out. And they're like, yeah. Then the day comes and holy mother God, he actually did it. He did it. My app sucks now. It was great yesterday. Now it sucks.
But this really does. Yeah, you're exactly what you said. If you had, well, actually, you know what? We're going to take a break and we're going to bring in Oliver because Oliver Breidenbach is here. My presumption is if you had followed Apple's guidelines and used the APIs as you should, that you wouldn't have a problem, Jason. Is that right?
Well, that the standard frameworks for text have been updated for this, but that there's lots of custom methods that are not the standard that Apple can't kind of patch, like writing out to a buffer at 72 dpi or at 1x. That Apple can't do anything about that other than say you need to sense that this is now at high DPI and do something different.
And if your graphic assets are not high DPI, well, actually graphics, it's not high DPI. I don't know.
Yeah, the 2x graphics is what you want, which means, and
graphics.
We just did this for our iPad app, last year, which is you go through and you say, okay, what are all the graphics in my app? I need to go back into Photoshop and redraw them all at twice the resolution. Fun.
Not to mention the fact that the web is going to get heavier if people decide that they want to make their websites look good on Retinas. The question is, how many Retinas is Apple going to sell, and is it going to be an important enough thing that I guess you have to. You're updating it. Well, I'm going to ask Oliver. I guess you're updating it for your iPad. Is it, Jason, exactly the same as the iPad?
Yeah. I mean, I think the iPhone, iPad, and now this MacBook Pro are all essentially doing the same thing web-wise. So if you write your website to support high-res graphics, it should, at least on the Apple devices, it should pick it up. And so you should, do that once, and you're going to get it on the Retina iPad, and you're going to get it on the Retina MacBook Pro. And it will increase bandwidth, although, realistically, bigger JPEGs are not huge. It's not going to. There was a story last week about how IT managers fear this computer because it will destroy bandwidth. And it's like, it's some bigger JPEGs on the web. It's not the end of the world.
I read that. That was on the Wall Street Journal. It was by a CIO. I thought, this guy's an idiot. But then if you kept reading, it was like, well, because people are going to start watching their YouTube videos at 1080p. It wasn't so much that, though, it's going to kill your bandwidth when they're just doing their normal surfing.
Yeah, maybe. That seems sort of silly to me. I mean, they're HD YouTube videos there now.
Come on.
You can watch those now.
Yeah. Come on. All right. Great cast. Good time to talk about this. Yes, we still have a lot more to talk about, but I do want to bring Oliver in here from Boink Software to talk about what the developer's perspective on this. But first, a word from hover.com. Just got an email, and I did not ask this guy if I could quote his email, so I'm not going to say his name. But he says, wow, that was so easy. Just got off the phone with Hover. They answered it before it rang. This is a real email I got this morning. They're going to transfer my 19 domains from GoDaddy for free. I just pay the $10 for a discounted extra year of registration. That's how it works. I talked to a human who knew what he was doing. You can show the screen because I want them to know it really was an email I got this morning. And no upsells of anything. So freaking easy. I can't believe it. And I'm so happy not to be giving that other guy my business. Thanks, Andy. This was an unsolicited email, and it's one of the reasons I hear people say this all the time. We tell you, if it's time to register a domain name, go with Hover. Hover.com. In fact, you can go to MacBreak.hover.com and use the offer code MacBreak, and you'll get 10% off your new domain. They do have, and it was in the ads before, and I don't know if they still technically offer it, but I think Andy's experience is the case. If you say, hey, Leo said you would transfer my domains for free, they have a domain concierge service. Normally they charge $25 to do that. That takes all the pain out of it. I wish I'd done it. I tried by myself. I thought, oh no, I'll do it by myself, and I got all my domains locked, and I still haven't transferred them all over because it's such a pain. Let Hover do it. They do charge you $10 to transfer a domain over, but you get an extra year on your domain, so it's a very good deal. Privacy is built in. Whois privacy is built in. That's really nice. They don't try to upsell you. Advanced DNS management. They've got a great management system for your domain, and they don't try to upsell you on stuff that is you don't need. They don't even do hosting. Now, if you want hosting, they have a hosting tab. They can suggest hosting, but they don't do it. Really, they're a domain registrar and an email forwarder, and that's it. They do offer 25 top-level domains, all the big ones, but also country-specific ones like IT, Asia, ES, US, DE. Some of the newer TLDs like .pro, .xxx. We use .tv. Hover's so neat. I want you to try it. If you use the offer code MacBreak, you get 10% off your domain transfer on standard domain names. MacBreak.hover.com. And thank you, Andy. I should have asked you. It wasn't Andy Ihnatko, by the way. It was another Andy. I should have asked ahead of time, but I just got this literally at 10 a.m. I got it an hour and 2 hours ago, and I had to share it with you because it says it all. He says, I So freaking easy. Hover.com. Use MacBreak.hover.com. Yeah, Oliver, come here. Oliver Breidenbach is here. Oliver is the CEO and founder of Boink Software. They do a great video switching program for the Macintosh, all Macintosh, but they also do some iPad and iPhone apps. Good to see you, Oliver. Yeah. Were you out for WWDC?
Yes, that's what I'm...
Okay, and you stuck around.
Yeah.
So, Oliver, you knew ahead of time, of course, as I think most developers did. When did you find out that Apple was going to do this?
Well, as Jason pointed out, they had been waving the flag for quite a while. So
the writing was on the wall, but you just didn't know when.
Yeah, well, there were rumors, and so we decided to just go for it. And,
right.
So.
Even though you didn't really have any hardware to test it on.
With the developer tools, there comes a little utility that allows you to turn it on, or allowed you to turn it on the old hardware as well. So you take a 30-inch screen or something
really big screen,
and then you can turn it on, and then you can see what's going to happen. So.
What has to be done to retinize an app? Why are so many apps not, for instance, not retinized?
Well, if strictly speaking, if you play it by the rules, then you would be good. But many things can't be done with the standard API. So many developers, take shortcuts or do their own thing to add stuff to the graphics. And you have to look at your code and see where do you do this and where are you fine, and then make the adjustments. And
right.
you have to something you have to figure out is what to do with the extra pixels. As you said, if just the user interface, it's easy, but what do you do with the content? And there you have 4 times as many pixels, and that's great, because like in Boink's TV, for example, we could use the preview window to actually show the full HD video, and still have a couple million pixels out around it to do the user interface.
So that's one issue, which is you're looking at a UI redesign. It's not just flipping a switch. iStop Motion captures images and renders them, so it does video and stills.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just what do you do there? You just take a higher resolution?
No, actually, you just use every pixel. So you just draw it. You just have to think about.
Were you downsampling before?
Yes. So instead of squishing stuff down to fit it into the preview window, we can just go with the full resolution thing. So basically, the thing is you have 2 different resolutions, right? You have the resolution for the UI, which is as you said, what is that?
1440 by 900 is the standard 9.
But then you have like a window in there where you can go for the full resolution for the for the content.
Oh, that's interesting. So regions can be full resolution.
Yes,
even if the screen
the screen is full resolution too, but they can draw now. They still count the pixels,
right?
But you can now have half pixel size thing. So one of the things we ran into is that we were tricking to avoid blips in between objects. We were drawing them half a pixel wider, and now when the display actually can draw half a pixel,
right.
it looks kind of stupid. So we had to redo our calculations to be more precise here.
Is it it sounds like. My problem is I'm confusing DPI with PPI. There is native pixels per inch. This is natively 2880 by 1800. But that's pixels per inch. There's also dots per inch. Well, it's not exactly the same. There's
I think the thing that the thing that is hard to grasp is that now the actual user interface is not really.
It's not
measured
native.
in pixels anymore,
right?
So you draw the operating system. Just that's why it's reflected in the control panel, is that you don't really talk about pixels anymore,
right?
So you don't do a button that's 16 pixels wide and 5 pixels high. That's not going to be the same thing anymore, because it depends on actually what the user has set in his in his.
So what do you
setup.
use? Use inches?
No, you keep using pixels, but they have like
a different meaning.
Yeah, it's a different meaning. Yes. So
okay, I get it. So, okay, and I guess part of what it was kind of I felt ripped off was that that I've been taught for so many years that with LCDs, native resolution is what you want to use because there's no scaling involved. Yeah. But there is no scaling when you're doubling. You're just using subpixel rendering within those larger dots. So you really aren't scaling here.
No.
The screen is always still 2880 by 1800.
Yes.
You're just using 4 dots to render 4 pixels to render 1 dot.
Yes. That also depends on what the actual setting is, because as Jason I think pointed out, is that if you go to the even higher resolutions, what they do is actually they render the double size on off screen and then they shrink it down when they display it on the screen. So that they move a lot more pixels than they used to, and that's why they the performance of the graphics card takes quite a hit actually.
Well, to give you an example, this is 220 pixels per inch. The 27-inch iMac is 108 pixels per inch. It's half. Yeah. This is twice as many pixels per inch as a 27-inch iMac.
Yeah. It's 2x.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that gives you some idea of what you have to do here. And actually, that's why I was impressed at how well, for instance, Diablo does at 2880 by 1800. It actually can keep up. Frame rate's okay.
So if you want my advice, then you're still better off drawing your graphics in vector art. Actually,
then it can scale automatically.
Yes, and then
whenever possible.
No, and then you can create whatever pixel size Apple wants to wants you to deliver.
Right. Yeah. How hard was this to do the upgrade?
Took 2 of our best engineers and a graphics person, the graphics designer. Took them about 3 weeks.
Oh, that's a lot
for iStop Motion. Yeah.
And when will that be out?
Maybe soon. Soon. We are adding the remote camera thing from what we did for the iStop Motion for iPad, where we can use the iPhone as a remote camera.
Right.
We're adding that to iStop Motion now, and then we're going to ship it.
I think that's probably the case, is that if somebody's going to push an update to software, they don't want to just make it Retina.
Well, I don't know whether people would. Yeah, I mean, if we didn't want to charge for it, then we would probably just output. But we haven't updated iStop Motion in a while, so I think we want to do a bigger renovation there.
Oliver, nice to see you. Thanks for explaining the developer point of view on this. Is it? Do you think? I mean, for your app, it's a benefit.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's for all content production apps. It's a good thing because as Jason pointed out, and Andy said as well with the photos, there's just much more you see on the screen. Right. Even if the screen is fairly small with the 15-inch, you still think that you see much more details in photos and video.
The people who might have a hard time are people who wrote a gaming app or any app with a lot of assets, bitmapped assets. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
because you got to redraw stuff.
Yeah, well, if you're using OpenGL, I think a lot of that stuff might
also scalable.
Might be done for you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Oliver.
All right.
It makes me feel like I'm dumb. And I just feel like, I don't know why, but I'm having a hard time really getting it. And some of it is because I was brought up in the era where you set screens at their native resolution. Because in the earliest days of LCDs, they didn't scale. Right?
Right. It's like the iPad. I think that's the safest way to think of it. It's like the iPad. Everything's the same size, but some stuff is now finer, because it's got more pixels to do smoothing and have more detail. But the problem with Apple's old approach that they kept trying to sell developers on was resolution independence, and that was literally like it could be anything, and it would scale, and there'd be vectors, and it was really hard and confusing. And with the iPhone and the iPad, Apple happened upon this other concept, which is 2x, right? It's just like, look, think of it as that 1 pixel is now 4, And if you do nothing, it just is in blocks of 4. But if you support this, then you can use each of those 4 blocks to do something different. So I think that's the safest way to view it. Now, if you start to think about what happens when I'm in that small mode and it's actually bigger than the screen and it gets mashed down, there's weird stuff going on in the background. But typical Apple, they just want to say, look, would you like it to be bigger? Would you like it to be smaller?
Right.
And by default, there's actually even a radio button. It's not that 5 boxes only comes up if you change the radio button from optimal, right? So by default, Apple's very strongly recommending just leave it the way it is. It's fine.
I think that's what they wanted, and they probably felt, well, we can't not put any settings in.
Well, what if you need to make it? Some people say, I want to make it a little bigger.
People like Leo will freak out.
Also, a lot of people have low vision, and they can't really use a 15-inch screen at that kind of dimensions. But yeah, this is a very human-oriented solution to a higher definition display. Because the way that you click into the understanding of this is that you really can't make the menu bar any smaller than what it is.
Right.
And every bit of the user interface and every single app in the OS is keyed off of the relative size of the menu bar, because that's a target that people can hit with a trackpad. So yeah, this would be absolute chaos if you had to deal with a really, really teensy tiny close box on a window. I used to have a really massive Sony HD display, like a CRT tube display that required two card slots for the driver, and it was really, really cool having this immense display. But oh man, it was like a game of Operation trying to close a window, because it's like, okay, I think it's there, I think it's there, I think it's there. No, it's not there. I think it's there. I think it's there. No, it's not there.
Well, that actually is probably the other reason why I'm having a hard time figuring this out, because I have had 30-inch displays that just were native resolution, and I've talked to people all the time. Microsoft and Windows, they solve this a little bit. They have a DPI setting, which will make the text bigger or smaller.
Does a user really want to know what the DPI is?
No, I agree.
That's the same reason why when I was setting up a new camera that arrived just last week. I always hate it when they ask me, "Is it daylight savings time?" I don't know if it's daylight savings time.
Don't you know?
I every time I have to go to the web and look it up. Are we in daylight? Okay, okay, Sony camera, we are in daylight savings time. This is a detail that the user does not need to know about. Right. It's a very good, solid Apple response to basically remove it from contention as something you need to know about to set up a monitor.
And I think it's a very typical Microsoft response to say, well, what would you like your DPI to be? Huh? What? All right. Let me just, chat room, I know I'm being stupid. You all get it. Everybody in the chat room saying, Leo, it's just like the iPad. Just think of it that way. And I think the problem is I didn't understand the iPad, but the iPad, there's no settings for resolution. It just does it, right? There's no control panel on the iPad.
There's some very nice people in the chat room saying, Leo, you just need to unlearn what you have learned. Then
Leo,
you'll get it.
Just keep the screen tuned to channel 3 and never worry about it again.
What? But I'd want to see Oprah. Where's Oprah?
She's on channel 3 now.
Just you're no longer using the T.
No, but Oprah's on channel 6. I have had that conversation.
I'm having flashbacks to my parents right now.
Yes. Channel 6 is just channel 3 in 2X mode.
No, but where's the clicker? I need a clicker.
Use the clapper.
I bought because I do have 8 remotes, and it's very complicated, and I even have a remote control set now that lowers the screen, and so I bought the Logitech One. It's too complicated. I like the 8 remotes. The Harmony is too complicated.
Wow,
that really is Leo. That really is a user interface point, because if you're trying to figure out with the Harmony remote, you really are in a mode where you have to figure out, I need to send a command to the TV set to turn off. What button do I push on the remote to turn this power button into the power button for the TV set? Versus just simply, I don't live on a nuclear submarine. I've got room on this coffee table for 3 remotes.
Exactly.
So, and given that I only turn the TV off once or twice during the course of the day, it's okay for me to pick up a remote that I know can only control the TV and push that button. Sometimes it doesn't need to be that complicated. Sometimes the low-tech way to go is actually the most effective user interface.
I hope those kids get off your lawn.
Get off of my lawn.
Before you catch them.
I don't understand. You've changed. No, it actually makes sense to use a dedicated remote that has the right button. When the Harmony one, and I love it. It's a really nice universal remote. But I realized that everything had to be in the same state for it to work. Like you can't, so everything has to be off. If something's on and other things are off, and you press the button, it turns things off when it's supposed to be.
Because some devices support discrete power on and off,
Some
and
do
others are
not.
toggle, and the toggle is the worst thing because it has no idea whether it's on or off.
I'm just doing the opposite of what I am right now.
If this is the problem that Apple solves with their Apple branded TV, I will buy 10 people at Apple beers. Just randomly, indiscriminately. Here is 10 beers. Please distribute them appropriately.
You kids need to understand. You're going to be my age someday too. It's not all pudding cream at this time. No, I have to say, with all of the things that we've talked about, and we certainly I have made a big point since last Monday of talking about what the potential negatives are. Unrepairable. You have to buy an Ethernet dongle, blah, blah, blah. It's not at the native resolution. What's going on? I love this thing. And the truth is it's the best screen I've ever used. It's going to it's very fast. We didn't mention this, but it is noticeably faster. The base unit is all I bought. I did not upgrade it. 8 gigs, 256 gig hard drive. Quad Core i7 it's so fast, and the boot times are fast. Everything it will spoil you for. And I know you're saying, well, it's big, but as we've learned with phones, thin does kind of ameliorate a little bit size in that dimension, in the wider dimension.
Again, but I have to agree with you. This is the experience in just the past week with this, just with a 15-inch notebook, which is but the size I normally deal with every single day, with an SSD drive. I'm now I've got a 256 gig SSD on my Amazon wish list right now, waiting for the day that I decide to pull the trigger on it, because the speed up is by no means subtle.
Get it from MacSales.com. I had the newer MacBook Air, not this current one, but the last year's MacBook Air, and it was a very easy thing to unscrew it. Put in, they make the SSD, it's on like it looks like an SO-DIMM card, and but except the edges on the short side, you just pop it in. It was a very easy upgrade. That was a very nice thing to do. I was really happy with that. And I've used every MacBook there ever has been, and I love my MacBook Air, but this is definitely replacing everything. This is the future for me. Because I can't go back, frankly.
11-inch Air forever.
No, really? Even after using this, you're going to say 11 inches? It looks like you're looking through
too heavy. I like the tiny laptop. This is the cafeteria tray.
Looks like you're looking through a slot at the actual screen.
I can't work on that tiny 11-inch screen. I just can't work with it. And also, I do like on a 15-inch machine to have at least the option of saying, do you want to spend your money on having a 256 gig super fast SSD, or is it more valuable to you to have a 750 gig or 1 terabyte internal mechanical drive?
Hey, let me ask, do you think they'll do Retina on the Air?
Yeah.
Okay, Retina everywhere.
Next year, maybe year after. I think in 2 years, all Apple's, if not 1 year, all Apple's products will be Retina.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. I think that they want that to happen. That's certainly a natural thing, a progression for the MacBook Air, where on a smaller display, extra clarity really pays off. But remember that if we've all seen the breakdown photo of this new MacBook, where 1/2 of this internal body cavity is nothing but battery.
Oh, yeah. And same on the iPad, right?
Right,
and
with a
iPad needs huge battery too.
Right. So I don't know what the power consumption would be on a 13-inch or an 11-inch screen. I don't know if there's enough where they have to actually sacrifice the taper of the MacBook Air in order to be able to fit enough batteries in to support the super density display. But yeah, I absolutely agree. That's what Apple wants to do.
Yeah. Not this year, right? Maybe next year. Maybe it'll take 2 years because technology will have to improve. That's why it's on this big system now. But I do think that's the direction Apple's going in, and that'll be awesome when it happens.
I'm calling this the MacBook Elite because it's not for everyone. It's for people who have deep pockets and are willing to spend to have the latest, greatest. But it is the BMW, of MacBooks. It's just, I'm kind of fond of it.
Yeah.
I'm physically in love with it.
I wish I had the link in front of me, but a friend was sending me a blog post that was been going around comparing the design of the Apple II Plus next to that cutaway picture of the MacBook Pro, where you have nothing but open slots, nothing but socketed RAM to this close thing, and underneath that is a photo of a classic BMW where anything you want to do to the set with the hood up. Anything you want to do, but next to that, a concept version of the BMW where everything is sealed off with fiberglass and plastic, and you can't even add windshield washer fluid if you want to.
True. There's no washer fluid.
He just did it from the app.
It's Nürburgring grade washer fluid. No, you don't want to be messing with high performance engines like that.
And then, yes, it's a colloidal suspension of silver. And then compare that to the Microsoft Surface. That's what we're going to do when we get back. Good, bad, ugly. We'll find out. Just a quick programming note. On TWiT on Sunday, we had a cupcake that was unidentified. And now, thanks to Twitter, I know what the name of this cupcake is. Remember, thanks to C. Christian Scott, who's tweeted this. We had cupcakes. We had all different kinds of cupcakes that Corey brought. And there was one with pink icing and almonds on the top and white cake, and I couldn't figure out what it was. It is the Battle Royale, the almond cake with a blueberry tequila filling topped with acai berry cream cheese frosting. It was the winner of the Cupcake Wars on the Food Network. And I didn't eat it. Who ate it?
Brian ate it.
Bastard.
Yeah.
Brian, he wasn't even here.
No, he edits TWiT.
Our Brian Burnett,
yeah,
not Schwood.
Not Schwood.
Oh, Brian Burnett gets to eat it.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. Schwood, no. Nothing for you, Schwood. Hey, let's talk about Audible.com. Audible is, of course, a longtime sponsor of this show and all of our shows on TWiT because we are such fanatics. AUDIBLE.com. It is the audio bookstore. I'm going to sign in really quickly because I want to make sure I can show you. Yeah, here we go. All the latest Audible books are right here. Boy, I don't even know where to start. So many great books. Did you see that The Kane Mutiny now is finally in an audiobook? I would love to.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a great book. Of course,
I got it. That's
the strawberry ice cream was down. It was missing. There was a cup missing from the strawberry ice cream.
A duplicate key had been made.
A key had been made. So, I'm starting to sound like Sammy Davis. I'm going to stop. Man, there was a key. I know there was.
A very happening sort of key, man.
I don't believe Humphrey Bogart is in this, but I think it would be a wonderful book to listen to. You know, it's great. They're going back and they're re-recording, in many cases, books that were never made available in audio. This is an Audible recording. They have 9 beautiful studios in their headquarters. I visited them in Newark. In fact, I recorded a little mini book there. And this is an opportunity for them to get these great books. Winds of War, Herman Wouk. That would be cool. I'd love to listen to that. I like long books. It's 45 hours. 45. And again, this is another one that Audible, came out. The book came out 40 years before Audible was able to make an audiobook out of it. Finally. Anyway, I'll give Andy the pick because he always gets such great books. And in fact, I've picked almost all of the books Andy recommends.
This is a book that I must have read about 20 times in the past 25 years. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Yeah. Passed away last week. And so I'm looking around seeing, is there any, oftentimes I'll go into audible.com and look for books by authors that I'll have favorite authors, but there's always that one or two books that you just never got to. And so you'll just download this book and imagine my pleasure to see that there are two good versions of unabridged Fahrenheit 451. And one of them is actually read by Ray Bradbury himself. And
well, this is a tough choice because the other one's read by Christopher Hurd.
And they're both really, really good. I wound up listening to the Ray Bradbury one for about as long as the preview lasted, and I wound up buying the Ray Bradbury one. Okay. It's not as polished, it's not as professional,
but it's him.
But it's Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
It's like when the guy who actually wrote the story is narrating the story. That's something pretty special. And so it does take, I think, a couple minutes to get used to his delivery, but after that, it's like, tell me, read another chapter, Grandpa. I'm not even halfway sleepy yet.
You can on audible.com listen to any previews of any of them, the books, and that's a good way to check it out if you like the reader. It's very, each of these is a performance. It's not some drone reading these books. They're performed. You can actually, sometimes hear the author read. That's always risky. Sometimes hear a great reader read. William Golding actually reads The Lord of the Flies. I can't only. I mean, how could that must be
anything written by Neil Gaiman that he?
Oh, you got it. Yeah.
Narrates. Yeah, that's done. You got to get that.
In fact, I get mad that he doesn't do all of his books, but he obviously doesn't have enough time. There is a Neil Gaiman audio collection that would be a great one. If you like Neil Gaiman, I love Neil Gaiman. I listen to all of his books on Audible. It's funny. I was talking about books with a friend earlier today, and she said, "Oh, I just don't have time for reading." And I said, I don't either, but Audible has given me time because there's always time. I'm in the car, I'm at the gym, I'm walking the dog. when I can listen to a book, and I get in an hour or two of reading every day where I never would have before. Audible.com /MacBreak. You get your first book free. You'll be signing up for the gold account. That's a book a month subscription, but the first month's free. Your first book's free. Wait a minute. I just saw something I might want to have to get. This is Terry Pratchett, a new book from Terry Pratchett. He teams up with Stephen Baxter, who's one of my favorite sci-fi authors. It's called The Long Earth. I don't know this. Okay. So I'm adding this to my wish list here.
I do think that there are the things I think that Apple has the wrong idea on. When they think that no one likes subscription services, I love my Audible subscription, and I would, if there was a way to even get Barnes & Noble or Amazon to just charge me for one book every single month, and the credits stack up whether I actually buy a book or not. It really does urge you to say, look, you've already bought 3 books you haven't used yet. Now you're going to go in, you're going to find a book that you want to read. And, of course, there's always a great book out there somewhere. So,
like this one by Megan McCain, America, You Sexy Bitch, a love letter to freedom. Wow. I wonder how Dad feels about that one.
For Father's Day. Oh, the best people.
Wow. Anyways, this is just a great place for books of all kinds. Business books, classics, fiction, history, mysteries, thrillers, sci-fi, science and technology. Adam Carolla's latest, Not Taco Bell material. Look at Adam as a kid. Oh, you look just like Adam as an adult. And Adam Carolla reads it. See, this is the problem. I need like the 20 book a month subscription. Audible.com /MacBreak. Get your first book. I warn you, you will be hooked. So, God, I don't know what to say about this Microsoft event yesterday. I'm listening because we did the live coverage of it. So I'm in the car because we went down to an event Ford had, and I was interviewing the CTO of Ford, and I would have loved to have come for our live coverage, but I couldn't. But Tom and Ayaz did a great job. We had Tim Stevens of Engadget on, and I'm listening, and we pretty much know it's going to be a tablet. Steve Ballmer comes out. I'm going, what? It's a Windows 8 tablet. They didn't announce a ship date, except that it'll come out when Windows 8 comes out. They didn't announce a price. They announced
They hinted at a price.
They hinted it'll be comparable. It'll be competitive, is what they said.
Right, competitive to Ultrabooks and competitive to an ARM-based tablet.
They say competitive, not comparable, by the way, which is a difference.
Yes. Okay.
Sure.
Because something could be $100 more and competitive.
Yes, I think that's true. Just like there are a lot of $349 Android 10-inch tablets. I'm not really going to say that the fact that costs exactly $50 less than an iPad 2 means that that's an insurmountable barrier for someone to reach. So long as it's within the ballpark, it would be a big problem if they're selling these things for $1,100 compared to $500 to $750 for an iPad. It's not a big deal if they're selling it for maybe $50 to $75 more than a comparable iPad.
I like our chat room. They said, bless their hearts, they're trying so hard. Just with the little Microsoft.
They look good.
Surface.com. Well, that's what I want to know, because I can't decide, is this crap or is this good? So it's got a kickstand. Okay, that's a little bit of a negative. It's got a keyboard cover. Now, this is interesting. It's a magnet cover, just like the smart cover, except that it has a keyboard built into it, except it's not a real keyboard. Obviously, it's a chiclet keyboard because it's only a few millimeters thick. I can't decide. I guess I'll have to try it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the problem. You've got 2 versions. You've got an Intel version and an ARM version. So these are very different. The ARM version has absolutely nothing that will run on it because it's brand new and you're starting from scratch. And then the other version's Windows. It's got it heats. It's a computer.
Yeah, but isn't that sort of a good thing?
I guess.
I got to say that now we have to absolutely up front acknowledge that there's a big, important 1/3 of that pie graph of information that Apple hasn't shared about these things yet. So you can't make any. I'm sorry, Microsoft, and you really can't make any sort of a judgment on it yet.
Right.
What I've seen though gets me very, very interested. Partly because they seem to have designed, if we're looking at the ARM-based tablet, they've developed a tablet that works the way that I use my iPad. that I too like sort of raised an eyebrow when they got to the very first part of the demonstration. Oh, look, and it has a built-in kickstand. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's great. That's terrible, because that means that you're emphatically saying that this is going to be a horizontally widescreen sort of thing. But then as they continue the demonstration, they're making it very clear that they're trying to make something that is Ultrabook-like, but more modern and more useful and more valid for the next 5 years.
It's a laptop with a chiclet keyboard.
Okay, but that's okay. Well, the iPad is a laptop with a virtual keyboard,
right?
I mean, and Logitech also makes keyboards that are like that. I don't think they're necessarily saying that this is the thing that you're going to be working on for 7 to 10 hours a day. The fact that
I get the feeling they want this to be the next. This is the next computing platform, isn't it?
No, but I'm saying not necessarily the keyboard that you're going to be typing on 7 to 10 hours a day, but it's a very, very lightweight keyboard that you will bring with you all the time. And when you're using it, unlike with the iPad, it doesn't obscure half of the screen. And if you really do want to do a keyboarding that's a little bit more comfortable than the flat keyboard will allow, there's USB 2.0, plug in whatever keyboard you want, or there's Bluetooth, use whatever wireless keyboard you want. Haven't you noticed that the market for third-party iPad mechanical keyboards is not exactly a rare thing? It's flourishing with lots of competition.
Yeah,
I think that Microsoft did take a look at how people are using iPads right now, and they found out that people really do want a tablet, an iPad-like thing that works a little bit better as sort of a bridge device between this phone you got in your pocket and this big $1,500 laptop that is 15 inches and too big to really carry around with wherever you go.
I bought a kickstand keyboard for my iPad. Yep. So what am I saying? I don't know.
I think it looks great. I mean,
you like it?
I mean, the devil is in the details, right? I mean, we generally, those of us in the tech press, have been pretty happy with the Metro stuff that Microsoft's been doing. I think there was a lot of wonder about like Windows 8 and how they were going to carry that off, and there's still some confusion. I think the whole Windows RT versus Pro thing in the two different tablets here is a little weird, but I and it's fascinating that Microsoft is making a PC itself, because this is a PC. That's Pro model.
That's risky too.
It is, but it's fascinating, and it's like they wanted to build it themselves because they couldn't rely on their partners, and what they built looks really interesting. I think I'm kind of torn. I'm not sure whether it's going to get traction as a pure tablet or not, because there's the whole app question, and it's going to be in there against the iPad, and it's going to be in there against Android tablets. But the Pro model, although it's a little bit of a homunculus, it's this weird beast with all this different stuff inside it. The fact is, it's also kind of like better than Ultrabook potentially, right. and that's really interesting that it's this super light tablet-y laptop. I mean, that keyboard is not just a keyboard, but it's also a trackpad, which is crazy. And I think it's really one of the more interesting things. Microsoft has done some very clever, interesting things lately, and this it speaks, I think, to the fact that I think Android had a real opportunity to take a huge chunk of the tablet market.
They blew it, and
it didn't do it. And now here's Microsoft to play too.
Here,
so
Chad, show this because I want to show the. This is the Pro version with a Pro keyboard.
The big keyboard case.
So it has the keys on this travel, but they only travel 1.5 millimeters. I mean, it's not like. But maybe people don't care about that so much. And
also, but some of the people who are at the scene who actually typed in those keyboards
said it was okay,
or that it's actually very comfortable. That they do miss the travel, but you can rest your fingers on the keycaps. You can actually type on the thing, and because this is a 16:9 aspect ratio, it's actually wider than a standard iPad. So one would presume that the keyboard is actually larger and closer to the size of a standard keyboard to begin with.
It kind of looks actually about the same size as the Apple Bluetooth keyboard.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, I don't, I'm kind of with you, Jason. I want to say, and this is the same thing I've said about Windows 8, bravo Microsoft for taking a chance. I'm just not clear what the chance is going to be, how it's going to play.
I think there's a really good chance here. I think they're doing something really interesting. The fact of the matter is that.
Maybe they had to.
Well, they can't keep making. They can't simply keep on implying to hardware manufacturers, "Hi, we thought it'd be a really cool idea if you start building machines like this."
Right.
And the only things they're going to be making are the things that they know that they're selling in gobs and gobs and gobs. So this is the only way to really push things forward. But I just keep thinking about a MacBook Air, the 11-inch Air that I don't want. And if Apple made a MacBook Air with a detachable keyboard like that, that could really work very, very well as a tablet when I want a tablet, when I want to be sitting there in my airline seat and just reading comic books or reading newspapers or watching a movie, and something that could do that sort of double duty and not just be my notebook computer, but also be the iPad that I have to carry with me whenever I feel as though I also need a desktop operating system. So the fact that there are these two, there is a big risk for confusion in consumers as they try to figure out which one runs Windows and which one runs this new collection of Metro apps I've never heard of before. But when you think of it as in terms of competing to a MacBook Air, it becomes really, really cool. And also when you look at Android has had a couple of years now, and they still have almost no tablet-optimized apps. So if Microsoft's first win is that they instantly become the number 2 10-inch and greater tablet on the market and put on at least Kindle Fire grade numbers, that's enough to build on. And because they're Microsoft, they're not because they're modern Microsoft and not 1998 Microsoft. They are likely to stick with this and build as they go. Microsoft almost never gets it right on the first try, but they usually get it right eventually. And if they can stick around, I'm wondering what happens when the single most popular operating system on the planet has a tablet that is designed to work as intimately as possible with that desktop. I'm wondering whether this will steer more people towards this new Windows tablet than to the iPad.
I actually think that this has the potential to erode PC laptop sales from other vendors more than Android tablet and iPad sales. I think the potential is there, and we'll have to see what happens. But I do think there's a chance that what this is going to do is make PC users say, oh, well, if I want to run Windows and have it be portable, I'm going to get this thing and run it. And it's interesting because then Microsoft is going to have to compete with Dell and Asus and lots of other companies that make Ultrabooks. But by having these two products, Microsoft is hedging their bets. It's also interesting. This is Microsoft saying we think Apple's approach is one we should try, is a good one, which is a big step for them because traditionally Microsoft has been all about doing the OS and letting the hardware partners build the hardware. And obviously Apple has become incredibly successful by controlling hardware and software. And at several points in that presentation, Microsoft said, this is what you can do when you connect hardware and software, which is what we've been hearing from Apple for years. So it's interesting to see Microsoft playing Apple's game, and by all accounts so far, doing a pretty interesting job of it.
So now do they kill the clones, as Apple did?
I think there's a wacky scenario that's probably not going to happen. But if you imagine what would happen if Google took its ball and went home with Android and said all future work they're going to do on Android is going to be on their own proprietary version, their fork of it, and you're going to use Motorola to build their devices. And then what if Microsoft kind of starts to crowd the PC makers out of the market, and Apple being Apple? I'm not saying it's a realistic scenario, but I look at that and I think, what if it turns out the right way to make these products is the way that Apple's been doing it all along? What would that mean for the Dells and the like of the world? They would be really hurting because where are they going to get an operating system then? They're going to take. Yeah. That's
my point. I mean, people have said, oh, this is going to piss off the channel, but you know what? They don't have anywhere else to go. It's a calculated move on Microsoft's part. And if you're Lenovo and Dell, you don't suddenly say, oh, we give up on Windows. You can't. There's nowhere else to go.
The other part of the challenge is that, remember that Microsoft has sold more than 500 million installations of Windows 7 alone. And so they're not going to be able to make 500 million of anything. So they're still going to need they can be the future forward company doing the hardware that is probably going to have to take a couple of years to find its audience. But once the customers come for this tablet, Samsung and Dell and HP and everyone else is going to be coming on board to build machines exactly like it.
Well, I'll tell you what they have done. They have absolutely eliminated the Windows RT tablet marketplace. No one in their right mind is going to do a Windows RT, the ARM-based version of this. Let Microsoft... I think that they've just killed the RT. This is my thinking, is that they've killed the RT tablet because you're not going to get a vendor competing against Microsoft on that tablet. There's not a proven market for it. There are no apps for it. So I think a lot of people take a pass on it. They'll say, we'll make standard Windows PCs, fine. We'll continue to make those. We're going to let Microsoft bear the brunt of moving the dial on this Windows RT tablet. Microsoft is now in a shrinking market because they're the only ones making it. That means no developer is going to write for it. It's dead. I think this move kills the Windows RT tablet.
I don't know, because it is sort of Microsoft's iPad, And if they are cross-compiling stuff that they're also writing for Metro on Windows 8, it'll pick it up. I mean, it might make it
There's not going to be any
road,
apps. They'll all come from Microsoft.
Well, why do you think? Why do you believe that there's not going to be any apps?
Because there's not a market yet,
Well, that's why Microsoft, at least with Windows 7 Phone, has already salted the mines to make sure that
it's not the same development platform, though. You have to rewrite it. If you've written something for Metro on Windows Phone, it is not the same as Metro on Windows 8.
I'm not saying that they can just simply cut and paste your code into a new app form. I'm saying that Microsoft has proven an ability to simply say, we need to have these 12 apps. We need to have these 30 apps. We need to have Netflix. They did mention that they've got Netflix on both of these tablets right now. And it's not as though a pad or slate-style computer user needs to have the full 800,000 variety of apps out there. They're really looking for 30 or 40 that are important. And let's not forget that each one of these Windows RT tablets will have Microsoft Office built in. And once you get somebody in the store and you tell them that what are the most important apps that you use in your office and at your house? Well, I use Office a lot. Well, great, that comes with free. And we'll open and close exactly the same documents you have at home. As a matter of fact, we have our own cloud service that comes with free, so you can just simply keep everything in a folder on your home directory, and then it'll just simply appear magically as soon as you connect via Wi-Fi. That's a big deal.
The problem with that is that, first off, Windows 7 Phone has this problem now, which is it's got some key apps, but I used one for a couple of weeks, and it was frustrating. And I talked to people who test them out, and the app situation there is still not great. It's got some apps, and you can use it, and it's a nice operating system. And I think where it falls down is that there hasn't been the number of apps released. And then in terms of RT Dead or Alive, I don't know. I think Office. Did they show yesterday any inkling of Office on Windows RT that isn't what they've shown before, which is that it's actually the old Windows desktop version of Office?
It runs in desktop.
Plug in a keyboard and mouse.
It runs in desktop.
That's not the same as a touch tablet version of Office. It's not the same.
Well, then that's something that they promised, and that's something they're going to probably show off by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I think they've said they're going to do it on iPad. So
I just don't think that it's necessary for Apple to come up with the same number of apps that Apple has for the iPad in order to be a credible and valuable and successful product. I think it really is in the low 3 digits in terms of the number of apps they need in order to keep most app users satisfied. We started off this show by talking about how most people don't use Ethernet, most people don't use an optical drive, most people don't use VGA. Most people don't use, I think, 80% of the apps that are available on the iPad store. If this sort of thinking can be expanded to tablet app stores, I'm not insisting that's true, but I believe that's true. The problem of creating a credible tablet with a good sustaining app store is not as insurmountable as a 6-digit figure number of titles in the iOS App Store would make one believe.
I don't know. Tell that to BlackBerry. Tell that to HP. Tell that to Android, in fact, which has hundreds of thousands of apps and still isn't getting any traction. I think you do need apps, and I don't think Microsoft Office is enough. We'll see.
All they have to do is be successful where Android failed. I don't think that it's been demonstrated at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the fact
right.
how many people failed in tablets before Apple decided to create the iPad? If they listened to the people don't buy tablets, people don't like tablets. The fact that Google has failed to build a marketplace for Android tablets only means that they did it poorly. If they do it well in Microsoft.
Well, it's certainly more elegant than Android on a tablet. I agree with you on that. It's a much more elegant interface. But if you can't run any software, if there's no apps, all the elegant interface in the world doesn't do anything for you.
Well, and this is the number one reason that Microsoft announced this without a price and without a ship date is
3
that
months
Google
away,
I/O is coming, and they want to get out there and say we have a story for developers too, so that Google doesn't sweet talk them at their developer conference. Because Microsoft knows how important it is to get the developers on board.
Put yourself in the mindset of a developer. You're making a choice now, but where to spend resources. You've got a very credible place with the iPad. I mean, obvious. You've got a credible place with Windows. Are you going to develop a Windows RT app? Are you going to spend money and developers on developing a Windows RT app when there's no proven market for it at all?
Well, there's people with money with these tablets, that's money to be chased after. And what do you want to do? Do you want to try to be the greatest social network powered photo app for the iPad. Oh wait, no, you've already been clobbered by that with 3 different incredibly competitive apps. Or do you want to create something in fresh ground where nobody has a better reputation or nobody really has the status of this is the greatest RSS feed based newspaper and magazine reader ever. This is the best comic book reader. This is the best Google Docs app out there. This is the best file sharing app out there. I don't think there's going to be a land rush to Windows RT, but I think there are plenty of people out there who are going to see the opportunity there.
Well, we'll see. And I guess it also comes down to, and we'll talk about it on Windows Weekly on Thursday with Paul Thrott and Mary Jo Foley, it comes down to how easy it is to cross-develop. So if you can write a Windows Metro app, and I presume, although, again, this is a big presumption, there are people who are going to do Metro apps for Windows, Windows 8. If it's an easy enough thing to cross-compile it for Windows RT, that you might do that.
Yeah, and let's not forget that we're not talking about the Windows Pro version, which will run the entire version of Windows Desktop.
That's more credible to me. I mean, I think it's a form factor of laptop that's unique, interesting, unproven. So
at least we're talking about Microsoft. Microsoft's
yeah.
gotta love that, right?
Oh, I agree.
Suddenly relevant.
Exactly. And I commend them for making it a 3-horse race. And everybody pointed this out. Pundits are going to love it because we want competition.
Oh yeah,
we want something to talk about, but also I think
user confusion is great.
User confusion is good, and I think a choice of platforms is very good for users. And we just don't know enough right now to know whether.
This is MacBreak Weekly. Apple, I think, does better with some competition.
You bet.
And the fact is, Apple's been coasting in some ways because there's been on the iPad. I mean, the iPad is not. They have progressed with the iPad, but the iPad has had no real competition. So I think it would be good if Apple got poked a little bit and was like, "Hey, why don't you do this? Why, if that happens, that would be good for Apple, and I think good for users of Apple's products too."
Yep,
I agree 100%. I think that the iPad is dominant because Apple's the only tablet manufacturer that's really got its act together. Once they have a company that has a good plan and a compelling product, then we'll suddenly see what are consumers naturally going to vote for? What do they really, really want? Right now, I just can't recommend any kind of other tablet to anybody. It's almost it would be I would never be invited to any family function ever again if I tried to steer somebody towards a Motorola Xoom. But if there's a good alternative out there, that's good for everybody.
And Microsoft's a safer thing than, say, buying a BlackBerry Playbook or a Xoom.
Oh, good God, yes.
So, they can't get mad at you because you recommended a Windows product.
Well, they've been saying that for the past 40, 50 years. You never get fired for recommending IBM equipment now and Microsoft equipment.
Yeah. It looks like I'm looking at a post that Paul Thrott posted a link to on his blog, Windows Supersite, to how to develop for Windows on ARM. You do it on Windows. Not on a tablet, obviously. And they say here, developing for Windows on ARM is the same as developing a Metro app for x86 PCs. The same Metro-style app will run on either hardware. Obviously, you have to cross-compile for a different processor. So it sounds like that they may be able to leverage, if you get a lot of people writing Metro apps for Windows 8, that's another question mark.
Yeah.
But if you do get people writing Metro apps for Windows 8, then presumably you could leverage that onto the tablet. And that gives them at least a little bit of a leg up. It's very interesting. I don't know what to think. We're going to take a break. There's lots more news, but I don't think we have time for it, so we're going to get to your picks. Podcasts will be separate in iOS 6. Yay. I think that's a good thing for us and for all podcasters. That Apple One computer sold for $300 and some thousand, the working Apple One. The Steve Jobs Atari memo.
People do want expandability.
See? They want a cassette interface. Bring it back. $27,000 for the Steve Jobs Atari memo with the handwritten note and the Buddhist saying on it. I think that's probably all of the really important stories. Public transit in iOS 6. Actually, a really good post on Coconetics, and this guy actually was in our studio a couple of weeks ago because he was in town for WWDCs from Austria, in which he talks about the reason why you won't see public transit directions in iOS 6. Basically, Google got screwed by doing it in Maps by the Austrian transit companies. There's two of them that are kind of sort of privately owned, and both of them decided to break the Google API, saying, we've got our own apps. So we're not going to give you public transit in the Google Maps. And so in this blog post, he's saying, and I think he's probably right, that it's just Apple's not going to do it because you can't guarantee the data will be there, and there's some good reason to think that it won't be there. So coconetics.com /blog if you want to read that. I think a good article. But our next segment will be our picks of the week. And if you guys want to do a OS tip or an iOS tip, or if you want to do a Retina display tip, I'll be all ears. But first, a word from our friends at Ford. I actually was down at the Computer Museum in Mountain View last night. Ford has opened a Silicon Valley office because they're reaching out to app developers. It was really great. I talked to Prasad, who's running the Silicon Valley office, and I talked to their CTO, Paul Macarenas. And it's really interesting to see a company that's more than 100 years old think about moving at the speed of Silicon Valley. You're a car company. You can't move at that speed. So what they've done is they've created an API for Ford Sync that allows developers to write apps on top of it, because they realized apps and the smartphone are going to move faster than the car. They said it's very simple. The car is a platform. We build in the tools, the sensors, the information on the platform, and then we give you an API to the platform and say, here, you continue to update it. It's just a brilliant way, thinking of a car as platform. And they're doing it. I mean, they're eating their own dog food as an example, the My Ford mobile app. So they were doing test drives of the 2012 Ford Focus Electric. So sweet. Oh, my gosh. And silent, and beautiful, beautiful vehicle. And then we took a look at the app, the My Ford mobile app, which lets you control all sorts of features in the car. You can, for instance, be in the living room, the car's in the garage plugged in, and you could say, hey, only charge during off-peak hours. I want to save money. The app saves you money. You can plan the most eco-friendly route with the app. The app has maps for where the nearest charge points are. BlackBerry, Android, and iOS, of course. They even have a website where you can, if you're, as Tom Merritt says, a stats nerd, you can go on the website and see who's saved the most CO2 this year, this month. They have forums. This is a really interesting approach to making the car, up-to-date consumer electronics. I just love it. I think you need to go to a Ford dealer and test drive the 2012 Ford Focus. Next year, of course, the plug-in hybrid Fusion Energy will be out. That will also have a My Ford mobile app. All their electric vehicles will. And the app is going to be updated regularly, as is the vehicle. Ford did something I've never heard a company do ever before. They updated the software in My Ford Touch this year. They sent out 300,000 USB keys. They said never before has a car company updated itself with a USB key. They said, we could make you go to the dealer, but we thought we'd just mail you the USB key. You just plug it into the USB port. Very slick. I just love this. Very forward-looking, and I can't wait to see what new products come from their new Silicon Valley offices. Ford Motor Company, proving you don't have to be a brand new company to be a modern company. 110 years old and going strong. Ford.com/technology if you want to learn a little bit more. Either of you guys got a Retina tip for me? I have to say,
don't stare directly at the screen for too long.
I'm hooked. I did with the chat room because so I'm using an app called Textual. There are a number of apps for IRC, but I can make the text bigger, and because they were smart enough to use the WebKit for the text, it's gorgeous at every size. You can even read it this small. I just love it. So the tip is to use the Retina, just the native, best for Retina. But then I have to say I'm very impressed that when you plug in an HDMI port, I've never seen a computer smarter than this. Because we hook up computers all the time using an HDMI adapter to the Thunderbolt and so forth. It worked right away, Chad. We've never had that happen. I just plugged in an HDMI and it was boom, and it picked the right resolution for both it and my display. I mean, just
that
very
was one of my fears too. I plugged it into my HD screen via VGA, and not only does it just simply auto detect what the optimum resolution is for that display. But also you have the option of saying, well, it also supports these other 4 resolutions, and not giving you good, better, big text, best. Is saying, here are the 4 resolutions you can do with the screen. Just pick one. Good.
Good. Well done. Well done. Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week.
My pick of the week is this is a product that will hopefully become unnecessary as we run screamingly down the primrose path of thinner devices and SSDs. It's called the Heat Shift Thermapack. And what it is it's a heat dissipating pad to slide underneath your notebook. So that it protects the notebook, and it protects in the summertime your bare knees and your bare shins from having the skin cooked off of it. My 15-inch last year MacBook Pro, I have to before I found this, I'd have to have like a little bit of a towel or a little something underneath, just like the back. Like the back corner of this device, because on my old MacBook, this corner would get super, super hot, and that's right underneath like the heel of my right foot, like when I have my legs crossed. And like after about 30 minutes, like, youch! So this is actually there are a bunch of like cooling pads that either just elevate the base of the device, or they actually have a mechanical fan that does cooling. What this is sort of, I don't know if you can hear it, but sort of a crunchy gel inside, and what it does is the gel absorbs heat and converts into actually gooey gel. So for at least 3 or 4 hours, it'll convert the heat that's being generated from the laptop into something less destructive. And I also travel with these things because if I'm booked into a hotel with a big king-size bed, I sleep in the queen-size portion of the bed and then leave like the rest of it just as like working space for, I'll be writing like and watching TV like in bed, and then when I'm done, just put it on the bed next to me. And oftentimes I'm woken up not by the iPhone but by the screaming of these fans, because it's sunk deep into that like Hilton 8-foot thick feather comforter. And so this will hopefully help out with heat dissipation when you're being so stupid as to block ventilation slots by putting it on top of a comforter. Anyway, they make different sizes for different machines, usually between about $15 to $20. And I like this. The company sent me this one to try out. I liked it enough that I actually bought a couple more. So there's every room in the house that has a comfortable chair and a power outlet has one of these somewhere nearby.
Andy, how many people live with you? What do you as you wander from chair to chair, there's always a place for you to light.
When you live alone, you can sit wherever. Every chair is your chair. That's the beauty of bachelor living.
I have equipped every chair in my home.
And because Buster is largely happy to remain wherever he's put, he stays off the furniture. I have designed the ultimate lifestyle. Until I get 73 and 74 and become ill, and there's no one to care for me, and I die alone, afraid and unloved.
Hey, you can move in with me.
But that's at least 4 years.
It'll be like The Odd Couple. Ihnatko, what are you doing? You left a dish in the sink.
That's a very important prototype of a Microsoft tablet. Don't put your beer on it. No.
Can two grown men share an internet connection without driving each other crazy?
It'll be like Big Bang Theory with old farts. It'll be great. Except who gets to be Sheldon? Jason, you had a pick for us, something you really like? I mean, as editor-in-chief of Macworld, you probably see it all.
I'm gonna show you an iOS app. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, there's a horrible reflection. It's called Robot Lab. Do you see that there?
Ooh.
Sort of see it?
Yeah.
You got a cardboard box. And you're not going to be able to see it very well. Well, you got a cardboard box, and you drag on like the legs of the robots, and and then the arms, and then the head, and then the. My kids love it. It's Toca Boca Robot Lab. It's $2 on the App Store.
Do adults love it too?
It's like it's maybe not complex enough for adults. It's very gentle. It's not really a game. It's more like a software toy.
Right.
You build these robots out of parts, and that's fun. My kids love just seeing the different parts, and then you play, and the game you play is super rudimentary. You're flying around and picking up stars, and getting to the end of the game, and you're like testing out your robot to see how it does. And I think there's some different attributes depending on what kind of robot parts you choose. But it's not like a challenging game. It's more that the kids just have huge fun. The robot parts are all these very pretty graphics, and then they love the fact that when you're done assembling it, you get to do something with it, which is just fly it around for a test flight. And
fun.
My son is 7 and my daughter is 10, and they both had a good time playing it. My son really thought it was awesome that he could build different robots with crazy mismatched parts, and it's cute and gentle and fun for younger kids. So $2. Tokaboka is the company, and it's the Robot Lab.
Tokaboka.
Yeah. Very cute.
I guess I really should pick Diablo 3 because everybody on it. What's nice is, and I love Blizzard for this. They did it with World of Warcraft. When they release a big hit game, they release it on both Mac and Windows, and I think that they should be applauded for this. And if you haven't played Diablo 3, it's about $50 or $60. You can buy it and download it from Blizzard directly. One of the really nice things about it is I have it on all my Macs because you download it and put it on every Mac and you just log into your account. Now, that's a negative, too, because some people say, well, you can't play if you're not online. That's true. You have to be online to play, even though it's not necessarily an online game. I do like the fact that my player, Grasshopper, follows me everywhere I go on any Mac I play, and it plays beautifully on the MacBook Pro with Retina, as they said at the announcement. So if you like the kind of, it's a top-down, click game. If you like it, that kind of game, this is a really fun one to play.
You're totally right about Blizzard. This isn't a recent thing. Blizzard has been doing Mac, Windows simultaneous but even when the Mac wasn't doing that great, Blizzard was there with Warcraft in the early days of Warcraft 2. So they've always been big supporters of the Mac, and they deserve a lot of applause for that.
I'm grateful to them, really. And it also shows that the developers say, oh, you can't do a great game on the Macintosh, are just wrong. I mean, you totally can. This is a really fun game, and I'm getting killed right now, so we'll just end the show now because, frankly, this spider's about to end me. Thank you, Jason Snell, Editor-in-Chief Macworld. Always great to have you on. Your authoritative voice it's helped calm me down considerably.
I'm glad I could talk you down from the Retina ledge. Sorry I couldn't be in Petaluma today. So
no, that's okay.
I'm all the way down here in San Francisco.
So you're at Macworld World Headquarters. That's great. Anything coming up you want to talk about? I'm sure you'll have Retina coverage.
Lots of stuff on the site now, and I'll put in a plug. You should check out our new tech site that we're launching this fall. There's a beta blog up now. It's TechHive at TechHive, TechHive.com. I hope to get some Andy Ihnatko stuff up there pretty soon.
Oh,
too.
Cool. So this is going to be like for extreme tech people that want to know a lot of tech stuff if you're really techie?
No, I think it's going to be a general tech site. So it's more like how we use tech in our real lives to make our lives better.
But not just Apple anymore.
No, this is going to be the editors of Macworld and PC World working together to kind of bridge that gap. So
I like
cool
that
stuff up there.
I like that. Yeah, already I'm interested, and this is the beta site in the articles.
Yeah, but just a blog for now, but full site launching in a few months.
Good on you,
handsome devil up in the corner of this. Yeah. I believe that's Jason Snell.
Now, is the editorial director of this thing?
Yeah, so I'm in charge. Actually, this is MacBreak Weekly, so I shouldn't say this, but I'm in charge of Macworld, PC World, and TechHive now. So I'm in charge of the whole shebang.
I didn't know that.
And it's true. And one of the things we're doing is this new the TechHive site, so we can bring the goodness of the experts at Macworld and PC World together and do some new stuff that's a little less. Yeah, there's a classic picture of me at like 19.
You look just like Steve Jobs. I thought it was Steve Jobs at first.
Yeah, it's not. It's just bad haircuts from that era.
No. Was that shot in black and white, or is that just an effect?
It was shot in black and white. That's no Instagram. That was in my black and white film photography era. Yeah.
1989.
High school photography class. Am I right?
Yeah. Look at that.
That's
he developed it himself.
Freshman year in college. Yeah.
And look they're all lighter than air. I did not know you were responsible for PC World too. So we should have you on our Windows Weekly show.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting.
Wouldn't that be funny?
I might be found out as a fraud, but yes.
Wow, thank you. It's so great to have you on, Jason. I just love having you as a part of our stuff.
I'm happy to be here anytime.
Good. And Andy Ihnatko, of course, we couldn't do it without you. Andy writes at the Chicago Sun-Times and has a great podcast. I don't know why I'm giving Dan Benjamin so many plugs these days, but I can't help it. It's good. Ihnatko's Almanac is on 5by5.tv every week. And we'll see you next week on MacBreak Weekly. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks.
We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on TWiT.tv. You can watch us live. We'd like it if you do, because as you can see, I pay attention to the chat room. And it's great to have that kind of live feedback. But, of course, we make audio and video available after the fact at TWiT.tv. We talk a lot about the iPad. If you're an iPad fan, on our iPad Today show, the show I do with Sarah Lane, that's every Thursday at 1:30 Pacific. It's going to be 1 p.m. Pacific starting July, I guess that'll be 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Well, I guess we won't be doing it on the 4th of July. July 11th, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 2000 UTC. So tune in iPad Today and MacBreak Weekly, and that's all I ask. You can ignore all the other shows. Thanks for joining. But please don't. Please. Thanks for joining us. Now get back to work. Break time is over.